We all picture sweeping savannas and epic migrations when we think of this continent. But tucked inside are deserts with dunes taller than skyscrapers, a delta that floods into a desert, and a lake holding some of humanity's oldest fossils. Baobabs stand like upside-down trees, and Ngorongoro's crater shelters entire ecosystems. From snow on Kilimanjaro to the thunder of Victoria Falls. The Masai Mara in Kenya hosts one of the planet's rarest spectacles, a mass migration where over 1 million hooved animals compress into a living tide. Do you know the Mara River in the Masai Mara transforms into a perilous highway where Nile crocodiles wait and thousands of wildebeest gamble their lives during each crossing? For weeks, the plains thrum with the drumbeat of hooves as wildebeest, zebras, and gazelles follow ancient cues from rain and grass. Predators time their hunts to this migration vortex, exploiting the confusion and the narrowing of routes that funnels prey into deadly choke points. Calving season takes this phenomenon to another level, when hundreds of thousands of calves are born in the southern Serengeti before the trek north into Kenya. That sudden flush of newborns creates both a feast and a firewall, shaping predator numbers across the whole ecosystem. From the Mara's hippo-lined banks to the acacia-studded ridgelines, every landscape becomes a stage in a journey that loops between Tanzania and Kenya. Local Maasai communities read the sky and ground like a living map, moving livestock and stories in rhythm with the migration's pulse. Lightning-fast river crossings can be over in minutes, but their echoes, trampled grass, scattered bones, stunned survivors, mark the land for seasons. Scientists track these movements with collars and satellites, revealing that weather patterns, not borders, choreograph this ancient ballet. The migration's choreography also influences vegetation, turning grazing patterns into a natural mosaic that sustains countless smaller species. Conservationists fear that fences, drought, and human encroachment could fracture the roots that generations of animals have relied on. Yet when the herds surge toward the Mara, the sight of endless horns and woolly backs moving as one still reorders what we think is possible in nature. Follow that movement across the riverbanks, and you'll find stories of survival, strategy, and surprising cooperation between species. Beneath the rim of Ngorongoro Crater lies the world's largest intact volcanic caldera, a natural amphitheater sheltering an extraordinary concentration of wildlife. Do you know that Ngorongoro Crater sustains a self-contained ecosystem where black rhinos, vast herds of wildebeest, and flocks of pink flamingos feed, breed, and survive within a single enclosed basin? Formed when a colossal volcano collapsed 2 to 3 million years ago, the crater's steep walls cradle swamps, grasslands, and a soda lake that glitters like a salt-streaked eye. The density of predators and prey here can be astonishing, with lions adapting hunting strategies unique to the confined terrain, while hippos wallow in the crater's shallow pools. Maasai pastoralists live on the crater rim and practice traditional grazing rites, weaving human culture into a landscape often imagined as purely wild. Their storied coexistence with wildlife is fragile and careful, a balance that conservationists and communities continuously negotiate to protect biodiversity and local livelihoods. Each year, the Great Migration brushes the crater's edges, connecting Ngorongoro to the sweeping plains of the Serengeti and turning distant ecosystems into chapters of the same story. Conservation challenges are complex here. Poaching pressures, livestock-wildlife competition, and tourism impacts require precise, locally informed solutions. Yet successful initiatives show that traditional knowledge, science, and careful management can sustain both people and species in one of Africa's rarest natural laboratories. As the sun drops over the rim, the crater's light shifts and reveals unexpected moments. A leopard sunning on a termite mound, a black rhino fragmenting the horizon. What Ngorongoro teaches us is that compact places can hold outsized stories, and that protecting a single bowl of land can preserve chapters of Earth's living history. Next, we move east across the rim into the plains, where the migration's pulse quickens and new surprises await. Join us as those plains unfold, and watch how the story that begins in Ngorongoro extends into the vast theater of the Serengeti. Mount Elgon's caldera spans more than 40 square kilometers, making it one of the largest intact volcanic calderas on Earth. Do you know that Mount Elgon straddles the Uganda-Kenya border and shelters several endemic plants and the highest concentration of ancient river gorges in East Africa? This forested giant rises from rolling farmlands into a ring of jagged cliffs and moorlands where giant lobelias and senechios create landscapes found nowhere else. Local Bakonzo and Bagisu communities have woven myths around its peaks, claiming the caldera is a cradle of fertility and a source of healing springs. The mountain's underground streams feed the Swam, Nzoia, and other rivers, linking its water to lakes, plains, and even distant national parks. Hikers cross ridges and encounter ancient cave systems carved into volcanic rock, some sheltering rock art and the remnants of early pastoral life. The mountain's quiet power has shaped culture, water, and migration in eastern Uganda for centuries, a living atlas of nature's slow work. Keep this image in mind as we move on to the rift lakes and plateaus that Elgon helps sustain, places where the mountain's reach quietly continues. Every stream that begins on its slopes tells a story of connection, carrying nutrients and life toward distant wetlands and fishing communities. Soon you'll see how that water shapes coastlines and cultures far beyond Elgon's misty ridges. From the caldera's rim, you can trace ancient migration routes etched into the landscape, pathways that linked highland communities with lakeshores and trade routes. In the next segment, we'll follow one of those rivers to the lakes that cradle entire fisheries and the towns that grew around them. Fish River Canyon in Namibia is the continent's largest canyon, slicing 160 kilometers of rust-red rock and plunging nearly 550 meters deep. Do you know that hidden along its lower reaches lies Eyes, a thermal spring where steaming pools meet arid stone? The canyon's walls are a geological ledger, exposing layers formed over 500 million years when seas, rivers, and deserts repeatedly claimed this land. Those rock pages record a slow violence of erosion, tectonic uplift, and climatic swings that sculpted the dramatic bends and terraces you see today. The Fish River itself is mostly ephemeral, a ribbon of water after rare rains that carves ponds sustaining hardy plants and animals adapted to scarcity. Along the rim, oryx, klipspringer, and bands of baboon navigate ledges, while hardy succulents and lichens cling to sun-baked crevices. Hikers on the famous trail descend into an ancient amphitheater of stone, traversing about 85 kilometers of riverbed, gravel, and narrow passages over several days. Permits are restricted to the cooler months, and the trek demands careful planning because rescue options are limited in this enormous, remote gorge. Beyond the physical challenge, the canyon offers hidden treasures, fossil-rich beds, mineral-streaked walls, and pockets where unexpected wildflowers explode after rain. Photographers wait for the dawn light that strips the cliffs into horizontal bands of copper, violet, and beige, turning familiar strata into living color. Local Nama and Herero histories thread human stories through the rock, naming roots, springs, and stone shelves remembered for generations. When you reach the rim, the view unfurls westward, a transition from the canyon's sanguine hues toward the pale, wind-sculpted dunes beyond. That gradual change in terrain links the Fish River Canyon to Namibia's broader landscape, a journey from deep-time geology to the shifting deserts of Sossusvlei. In that continuity, you grasp why this place feels less like an isolated spectacle and more like a long, patient conversation between water, stone, and sky. Table Mountain's flat summit is one of the few places on Earth where an entire mountain wears a moving tablecloth of cloud that forms and dissipates like a living sheet. Do you know Table Mountain hosts more plant species per square meter than the entire United Kingdom, including hundreds found nowhere else on the planet? Its sandstone cliffs are among the oldest exposed rocks on Earth, shaped over hundreds of millions of years into sheer faces and hidden ravines. Hikers find twisting fynbos trails that pulse with color, while tiny endemic proteas cling to crevices, surviving droughts and wildfires in remarkable cycles. The mountain's cableway, an engineering marvel, rotates gently to reveal the city and ocean below as each car climbs toward the plateau. From this vantage, the skyline of Cape Town folds into the horizon, and whales can be spotted in winter off the distant coast. Indigenous Khoisan rock art at lower slopes whispers of human stories tied to these rocks for millennia, linking nature and culture in unexpected ways. Even weather on the summit writes its own drama, where sudden mists can turn daylight into a shivering, otherworldly landscape within minutes. Scientists come for the unique microclimates that nurture specialized insects and plants, some adapted so precisely they exist only on one ridge. Conservationists race to protect these fragile pockets from invasive species and urban pressure as the city expands toward the mountain's base. At sunset, the top catches light like a flat, glowing coin, and photographers chase that brief golden hour for images that defy imagination. Yet beneath the spectacle lies an ecological ledger of resilience and vulnerability, that tells a deeper story about survival and stewardship. Walking from Table Mountain toward the Cape Peninsula, the landscape folds into Chapman's Peak and then drops to the wild promontory of Cape Point. From there, the line of sight curves to Robben Island, linking geological time, human history, and oceanic wilderness in a single, unforgettable sweep. The Avenue of the Baobabs in western Madagascar hosts some of the world's tallest and thickest Adansonia grandidieri trunks, relics of a forest that has largely vanished. Do you know the Avenue of the Baobabs is not a planted avenue, but a natural stand that survived centuries of deforestation and is now home to trees estimated to be over 1,000 years old? These colossal, upside-down trees can store thousands of liters of water inside their swollen trunks, an adaptation that lets them survive the island's long dry season. Their nocturnal blossoms open only at night and are pollinated by giant moths and bats, a fragile dance few visitors ever witness. Between Morondava and Beloni Tsiribihina, the dirt road that became the avenue slices through a surreal corridor of silhouettes that have inspired local myths and international photographers alike. But beneath the postcard sunsets, scientists warn that many of these giants are declining due to land conversion, altered fire regimes, and shifting rainfall patterns. Locals have used some hollowed baobabs as meeting halls, wine cellars, and even shelters, turning living trees into cultural landmarks. Yet their survival isn't guaranteed, and every scar on a trunk tells a story of survival and of mounting pressure. Visit at dawn, and you'll see silhouettes against pink skies. Visit after a rare storm, and you'll find seedlings trying to reclaim broken ground. The avenue's fragile beauty raises a question few postcards ask. What will replace these ancient sentinels if they vanish? Conservationists now work with local communities to reforest corridors and protect the remaining stands, blending traditional knowledge with modern science. Next, we'll follow the route inland to Kirindi Forest, where the same dry landscapes shelter endangered lemurs and reveal how interconnected Madagascar's ecosystems really are. The Okavango Delta is the world's largest inland delta, a freshwater labyrinth that floods into the Kalahari Desert, creating islands and channels unique on Earth. Do you know the Okavango Delta's life-giving floodwaters begin as rain on Angola's highlands and take months to arrive, reshaping land and wildlife cycles in ways you rarely see anywhere else? Seasonal pulses push rivers across fan-like plains, lifting vegetation and carving reed forests where hippos and elephants move like slow boats. Birdsong at dawn can be overwhelming, with migratory and endemic species converging to exploit this temporary abundance. Predators time their hunts to the flood, and prides of lions patrol narrow shorelines where prey is concentrated and escape routes are limited. Unique residents such as the marsh-dwelling Sitatunga and the water-loving red lechwe survive by adapting hooves and habits to these shifting waters. Local communities read the flood's rhythm like a calendar, guiding fishing, grazing, and seasonal travel with knowledge passed down for generations. Conservationists call the delta a living laboratory because islands vanish and reappear, testing how ecosystems recover and how species respond to rapid change. Mokoro canoes and discreet hides let researchers and visitors slip into this shifting world without disturbing it, while scientists study how climate variability may alter flood timing. Beyond wildlife, the delta recharges groundwater and distant wetlands, acting as the ecological heart that links rivers, pans, and the broader Kalahari landscape. From here, the story of southern Africa's water continues, connecting the Okavango to saline pans and migration routes that reach as far as Zambia and South Africa. In the next segment, we'll follow one such corridor, tracing a herd's seasonal journey and uncovering the hidden ties between river, survival, and human history. We'll also meet the people whose traditions weave water into song and survival, showing how culture mirrors the delta's ebb and flow. Stay with us as the Okavango's secrets unfold, revealing why this wetland is both fragile and fiercely resilient. Victoria Falls carves an uninterrupted curtain of falling water over 1,708 meters wide and plunges over 108 meters deep, creating one of the largest sheets of falling water on Earth. Do you know Victoria Falls is locally called Mosi Oa Tunya, the smoke that thunders, and its spray forms a permanent rainforest in the middle of dry savanna? The roar can be heard miles away, while vapor lifts like a silver veil that alters local weather, fostering ferns and orchids found nowhere for dozens of kilometers. At the lip, a daring natural pool called Devil's Pool appears in the dry season, where swimmers stand perilously close to the abyss with only a band of rock separating them from the plunge. Beneath that thunder, the river splits into a labyrinth of basalt gorges, each carved and widened as the falls retreat upstream over millennia. Geologists can read this living history in the stepped cliffs, where each chasm tells of a past collapse and the next great leap the water will take. The spray also preserves ancient rock art sites and rare riverine ecosystems that support pods of hippos, elephant corridors, and flocks of fish eagles. It is a place that forces you to rethink scale, a waterfall that is both a global landmark and the lifeblood of everyday rural villages. Hidden in the mist are small, astonishing details: bats nesting in the cliff shadows, endemic frogs that sing only at dusk, and ancient trade routes carved into the gorge. These secrets link to the broader tapestry of southern Africa, hinting at why rivers like the Zambezi have long been the continent's arteries of movement and exchange. As we leave the thunder behind, we carry with us the smell of wet stone and the knowledge that the fall's pulse echoes far beyond its roar. Next, we trace the river's calmer stretches, where life slows, channels spread, and the Zambezi reshapes the land into lakes, marshes, and people's livelihoods. Victoria Falls is not an endpoint, but a gateway, a dramatic beginning to the river's long conversation with the landscape. Hold that image of spray and thunder. It's the thread that will stitch together the next chapters of our journey across southern Africa. The Simien Mountains, Ethiopia, contain one of the world's most dramatic escarpments, plunging nearly 2,000 meters into carved valleys. Do you know the Simien Mountains host endemic Walia ibex and Galata monkeys that live together at high altitude? From the ridge that links the highlands to the previous plains, granite towers and plateaus create a sculpted skyline. Here, rare clouds pool like drifting seas in amphitheaters carved over millennia by wind and water. The land bears traces of ancient human paths where shepherds still lead flocks along narrow knife-edge trails. Villagers speak of mountains that collect snow in pockets, feeding springs that sustain villages in a landscape of stone. Wildlife here moves in unique patterns. Gelada troops grazing plateaus by day, and the elusive Ethiopian wolf hunting at dusk. Birdsong fills the thin air with species found nowhere else, their calls echoing off cliffs like an ancient chorus. Trails climb toward dizzying viewpoints where the drama of basalt cliffs meets soft meadows dotted with silvery junipers. These high pastures host seasonal blooms that paint a fragile carpet of color against monstrous stone forms. Ancient geology tells of uplift and erosion, of plateaus split open into pinnacles and chasms few other landscapes can match. Conservation efforts here are a race against time, balancing tourism with protecting species that live nowhere else on the planet. Walkers who follow ancient ridgelines find ruins and stone terraces, hinting at cultures shaped by extreme height and isolation. The air, thin and sharp, carries stories of survival, of people, plants, and animals adapting to the cliff-scored world. As the light changes, the mountains reveal unexpected microclimates where pockets of moisture support orchids and tiny endemic herbs. This patchwork of niches is why scientists call Simien an open laboratory for evolution, each ridge a living experiment. Mount Kilimanjaro harbors one of the world's last equatorial glaciers, tiny white caps clinging to Kibo's crater even as the tropics lap at its slopes. Do you know Mount Kilimanjaro is the tallest freestanding mountain on Earth? Its summit, Uhuru Peak, reaching 5,895 meters above sea level. From cultivated foothills to alpine deserts and icy summits, Kilimanjaro compresses 5 distinct ecological zones into a single climb. That vertical parade of life supports rare plants, endemic insects, and ancient cloud forests that feed the rivers below. The mountain's glaciers once formed a high-altitude reservoir, and as they retreat, their meltwater patterns are reshaping valleys and people's lives. Local Chaga communities trace their origins to these slopes, weaving Kilimanjaro into stories, cultivations, and irrigation systems that sustain coffee terraces. Climbers who tackle Marangu, Machame, or Lemosho find themselves walking through climate zones as if through chapters in a natural history book. Yet Kilimanjaro is not only a challenge for humans, it is a living laboratory for scientists, mapping rapid ecological change on an isolated volcanic massif. Hidden life clings to crags and ridges, mosses that hold moisture, lichens that colonize bare rock, and alpine flowers that bloom in brief high-altitude summers. These fragile communities are indicators, barometers of shifts in temperature and precipitation that ripple across eastern Africa's landscapes. From its slopes, water flows down to feed the Pangani Basin, connecting Kilimanjaro's fate to rice paddies, coastal mangroves, and towns on the Indian Ocean. As glaciers thin and rainfall patterns change, downstream farmers, migratory birds, and distant fisheries feel effects that began on this solitary peak. Beyond natural science, Kilimanjaro has shaped explorers' imaginations and inspired conservation efforts that echo across national parks and protected areas across Africa. Understanding Kilimanjaro's future means listening to local elders, tracking snow lines, and following rivers that carry its story toward the sea. The mountain story is both local and global. Its shrinking ice warns of changes that touch us all. Lake Turkana is the world's largest permanent desert lake and the largest alkaline lake on Earth. Do you know Lake Turkana's glass blue surface, nicknamed the Jade Sea, conceals fossil beds that have rewritten the story of human origins at sites like Kubifora? Its rim of volcanic cones and black lava fields looks more lunar than African and shelters thermal islands where crocodiles bask beneath steam vents. The lake's saline breath comes mainly from the Omo River, whose seasonal floods once fed reed beds and fish nurseries that sustain Turkana communities. On the eastern shore, Sibeloy National Park holds bone-rich strata where scientists unearthed early hominins and stone tools that bridge millennia. Walk the ridgelines, and you step from living pastoral camps into a prehistoric archive of skulls and footprints cemented in ash and silt. Bird life explodes at dawn. Flamingos, pelicans, and cormorants wheel above breeding islands that form when the winds sculpt the shoreline. Under the surface, alkaline-tolerant microbes and fish species have adapted to chemistry so different it feels like another planet. Central Island, a volcanic heart in the lake, keeps a quiet geothermal heartbeat that preserves nesting sites and rare plant pockets. From its rim, you can see the pale sweep of the Chalbi Desert, linking the lake's life to the parched plains where nomads read the land. Yet this living archive faces new threats as upstream dams and climate shifts alter the Omo's flow and the pulse that defines Turkana's cycles. Local communities, scientists, and rangers now navigate a fragile future, balancing ancient traditions with urgent conservation measures. To understand Lake Turkana is to trace a chain from deep-time fossils to present-day fishermen hauling shimmering catches under a blazing sky. Each ripple here touches distant rivers, deserts, and human histories, a reminder that this remote Jade Sea connects more than shorelines. Later in this film, we'll follow the footsteps of those discoveries, visit a fossil site where a single bone shifted our view of humanity, and meet the people who live by Turkana's unpredictable moods. Their stories will show how geology, water, and human ingenuity are braided across this ancient landscape. Near the western shores, the famous Turkana boy skeleton was pulled from ancient sediments, an almost complete early human that still ranks among archaeology's greatest finds. His presence anchors Lake Turkana to the deep human past and to questions we still ask about migration, survival, and climate. Today, fishermen braid nylon nets with old songs, while scientists chart shifting shorelines, and each cast is as much about feeding families as it is about reading a changing planet. Stick with us, and you'll see how a single lake can hold the science of continents, the poetry of survival, and secrets that kept their silence for millions of years. On a coastline of crystalline fog, the Namib Desert of Namibia holds dunes that have been sculpted by wind for over 55 million years. Do you know the Namib Desert survives on a fragile breath of Atlantic mist, nurturing life in places no other desert can? Here, the sand is more than pigment. Iron oxides bake the grains into Sossusvley's red giants that tower like living cathedrals. In Deadvley, bleached camel thorn skeletons stand on white clay pans beneath surreal orange dunes, a paradox of death and beauty. Not far away, the skeleton coast meets the sea with stranded whales and shipwrecks, its name born from sailors' nightmares and fog-bound bones. Yet life persists. Welwitschia mirabilis clings to rock, its two leaves twisting into centuries, sometimes surviving more than 1,000 years. Tiny fog-basking beetles tilt their bodies to harvest droplets, turning dew into drinking water in a technique found almost nowhere else. Migratory birds ride the cool fog bands, and endemic lichen paints hidden gravel plains black, signatures of an ecosystem written in extremes. The desert's colors change with each hour, vowels of heat and chill, composing an ever-shifting palette that traps the eye and confounds the mind. Ancient rivers, now fossilized, whisper of a wetter past where elephants once roamed, linking this arid present to deeper histories. Nomadic Himba communities adapt with ingenious water knowledge, their presence a living bridge between the land's geological memory and human resilience. From high dunes, you can watch the Atlantic fog crawl inland, a slow, ghostly tide that stitches the desert to the ocean. As we close this journey across Africa, remember how the continent's landscapes, from the singing dunes of Namibia to the fiery pink of Senegal's Lac Rose, rewrite what we thought nature could be. Do you know that some of the wetlands in the Congo Basin lock away more carbon beneath their peat than many industrial nations emit in a year? The Okavango's flood pulse does not follow the rain, but the pulse of distant highlands, creating a seasonal oasis that supports elephants, lechwe, and predators in a shifting green labyrinth. Madagascar's baobabs and Socotra's dragonblood trees evolved in isolation, birthing forms that seem borrowed from otherworldly sketches rather than Earth's catalog. From ancient rock art in Tassili to the living coral forests of the Red Sea, human stories and deep-time geologies overlap like layers of an old map. Along the Rift Valley, lakes and volcanoes trace a clashing of tectonic plates that continues to sculpt new habitats even now. These wonders are fragile. Rising temperatures, mining, and unchecked tourism press against rhythms forged over millennia. Yet conservation efforts by local guardians, scientists, and communities are proving that people can be the stewards these places need. If we leave this continent with one obligation, it is to protect its hidden marvels, not as trophies, but as living systems we depend upon. Return with curiosity, support local voices, and let these landscapes teach you how interwoven our futures truly are. The story of Africa is not a finished chapter, but an invitation to listen, learn, and act, so that the dunes keep singing and the lakes keep turning pink for generations to come. Carry these images back into your daily life and remember the quiet power of places that change how we see the world.